Now, today we are looking at how then do we ensure that women are empowered? You know, when we talk about issues of gender and GBV specifically, we say that it is easier for women to be able to stand up for themselves and negotiate their safety, whether it's sexual safety or whether it is financial, if they are independent themselves. Now, it's that economic empowerment that we are focusing on today. We have two wonderful speakers. One of them is Dr. Dr. Mike Muzekenyi, who is a senior researcher and specialist at Stadio Higher Education. We also have Ms. Mahadi Buthelezi, who is the chairperson of the property pillar of the Women Economic Assembly. These two speakers bring with them a wealth of information and experience that they have accumulated in their interactions, not only locally, but globally. Their resumes are very colorful, but we are not only looking at that, we're looking at what they are going to bring to us as the people who are attending this webinar right now. How do we ensure that we have resilient economies that are sustainable for women, which are going to be able to address issues of GBV, issues of HIV infection? You understand all the issues that were highlighted in the webinar yesterday. We are going to have a slight change, but because we haven't shared the program, we were supposed to start with Ms. Mahadi, but we have switched things around and we're going to start with Dr. Muzekenyi. I need to read his profile before he steps on so that you understand the wealth of information that he is bringing into this session. Sorry, not Mr. No, I'm not demoting you, Dr. Muzekenyi. Dr. Mike is a highly dedicated economist and researcher with over a decade of experience in the field of economic development. He holds a PhD in development economics and has made significant contributions to academic literature, authoring more than 15 research papers and 5 book chapters, which were published in accredited journals. His work is driven by a deep passion for transforming Africa's economic landscape through forward-looking research that informs impactful policy formulation. Dr. Mike's key areas of expertise includes human capital development, agricultural services, gender equality, energy and mining sectors, which he believes are pivotal to foster growth and development across the continent. He's a relentless advocate in the fight against chronic issues such as poverty, hunger, and inequality. Dr. Mike has remained steadfast in his mission to address all these challenges that continue to plague many African communities. His bio is a bit lengthy, and in the interest of time, I'm just going to highlight some of the main projects that he has been involved with. He was with Africa Resource Center, measuring the impact of supply chain changes and improvements on primary healthcare outcomes for patients. He worked with Africa Chartered Managers to do evaluation of work integrated learning program in South Africa. And he also worked with Bank Sita Univen to look at the constraints in the SETA funding model and possible mitigating strategies. Dr. Mike, I want to allow you now to take the stage and take us through your topic, which focuses on unpaid care work and its economic implications, as well as gender responsive economic policies. Over to you, Dr. Mike. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela, and good morning, colleagues. It is indeed an honor to be here today. Perhaps let me just quickly start sharing my slides and talk to the issue that are really affecting our nation, if not the whole world at large. Like what Ms. Montana said, I am Dr. Mike Muzekenyi. I'm a development economist and a researcher dedicated to understanding and promoting equitable economic development. And today I'll be discussing on important issues or rather pressing issues, women participating in the labor force and how to address gender inequality, that can significantly, advance our economic progress in South Africa and beyond. Before I jump into the presentation, I just want to say the presentation today is coming from lived experience, because I grew up in different, with different economic backgrounds, in farms, in townships, and so forth. So whatever that I'm actually going to say today is really coming from lived experience. And gender equality, in the workforce, or rather in different houses, it is not just a matter of social justice, but a vital driver of sustainable economic growth. So despite global advancements, women remain underrepresented in many sectors, facing barriers that hinder their full participation. So this presentation will explore the challenges, the opportunities, and strategies to bridge this gap, ultimately fostering a more inclusive and prosperous economy for us all. And thank you very much for according me this opportunity. So moving ahead, my presentation outline is as follows. I will just start with definition of key terms, moving to the background, and we just have to look into, gender inequality statistics, that is global, Africa, then we narrow down to South Africa. We are going to talk about women participation in the labor force, gender wage gap and financial inclusion, and strategies that can be used to empower women. Key to this presentation is unpaid care work and its economic implication. We are going to talk about entrepreneurship and access to capital for women, the current challenges that we are facing in South Africa, and lastly, I will have to talk about the strategies that can be used in order to empower women in South Africa. So in terms of the key definitions, gender equality means creating a society where individuals, regardless of gender, have equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities. It's about fostering an environment where everyone can contribute to economic and social development freely and fairly. Then when you talk about gender wage gap, it represents the difference in earning between men and women, in the labor market, and it remains a significant barrier to economic fairness, impacting not just individuals' livelihood, but also broader economic development in different communities, different industries, and different homes. Moving to unpaid care work, it includes domestic tasks and caregiving responsibilities that, although not financially compensated, are essential for society functioning. And recognizing the valuing of this work is crucial for achieving, true gender equality, given the fact that women, those that are actually looking after, be it an auntie that is ill, be it a father that is ill, or a family member that is ill. Then lastly, gender responsive policies, deliberate actions and strategies tailored to reduce, disparities. They are vital tools in promoting equality and ensuring that both men and women can contribute to the benefits of the economy, as we endeavor to, support whatever that is actually coming from different facets of life and build, be it a happy home, be it a happy community or a happy country. So it's very, very important to actually come up with, gender responsive policies. Right. So in terms of gender equality statistics, gender inequality remains a critical issue globally, with Africa experiencing higher rates of maternity, or rather maternal mortality, and gender-based violence. South Africa, while making progress due to different, policies that have been implemented, still faces significant challenges with femicide and workplace gender disparities. And as you can see on my slide, globally, women constitute approximately 4 billion, making up nearly half of, the world's population at 49.6%. These are estimates. In economics, we used estimates. So these are not actual numbers, but estimates that came from, different sources such as, the World Bank, African Union, and World Health Organization. So as I have said, they constitute of about 49.6%, and around about 1.4 billion women are actively participating in the workforce, representing about 39%, only 39% of the global labor force. And despite their significant numbers, gender inequality across the globe, continues to exert a heavy toll, with an estimated 300,000 women dying each year due to issues linked to gender disparities, such as maternal mortality, gender-based violence, and lack of access to essential health care. I was listening to the presentation that was done yesterday. So these are some of the issues that they have to, touch on yesterday. So focusing on Africa, the continent's female population is around 680 million, and accounting for just over, half of its total population at 50.14%. So women in Africa are also vital contributors to the economy, with about 130 million women, working and making up about 40% of the continent's workforce. So you can see that there is, imbalance between those that working from the male side and from the female side. So about 60% men contributing to the development of our African continent. I would say gender inequality, remains a serious critical challenge, resulting in approximately 200,000 deaths annually caused by maternal health issues, violence, and limited access to education and health services. So these alarming statistics highlight, the persistent disparities faced by women worldwide, and not only in Africa and not only in South Africa, and emphasizing the urgent need, for targeted policies and actions to bridge this gap and promoting gender equality in our motherland, South Africa. So continuing with statistics, it's just it's always good for us to have numbers at the back of our head, so that when I start, giving strategies thereof, we know where we are coming from and how best we can, improve these numbers to meet the targets that are reflected probably in the National Development Plan or Sustainable Development Goals or Agenda 2063. So in the labor force, so the labor force participation rate for women stands at 49% compared to 60% for men, highlighting a significant, participation gap. Women are also disproportionately represented in informal and vulnerable employment sectors, which offer, limited security and benefits. The gender wage gap remain a pressing issue, with women earning on average 28% less than their male counterparts. In terms of unpaid care work, which is caregiving, women dedicated about 3.5 times more hours than men, reflecting a deep-rooted society norm. As we were growing up, we taught that males in the house are supposed to go to work, and women, they have to actually remain behind and take care of, the duties, take care of the sick and so forth. So that norm is still, rampaging our societies, even our workplace today. So in terms of, unpaid work, as I've actually indicated before, 3.5 times more hours women are actually assisting on unpaid care work as compared to men. And it is a need for concern. Why? Because we need to strike a balance on how best we can empower women and enable them, to become soul winners or drivers of community development or even at national level and so forth. So in entrepreneurship, women own just 38% of small businesses in South Africa, indicating an ongoing challenges in achieving, equal representation and opportunities in the business ownership. So these disparities underscore the critical need for targeted interventions to promote, gender equality in economic participation. Moving ahead, so I just had to come up with the different sectors in South Africa that really doing well in terms of, employing women. So the first one is the community and social services sector. That is the highest number, with around 2.4 million women employed. And this is followed by the trade industry or trade sector with over 1.5 million, and the finance sector with 1.3 million, and the private household sector, which employs around 874,000. The manufacturing sector, 497,000, while in agriculture and transport sector have around just over 200,000, both sectors. And again, the construction industry employs about 146,000 women, followed by the mining sector, which is about 81,000, and utilities with the lowest number, which is about 32,000. So this distribution highlights significant employment disparities among, different sectors. Because if you sum up these numbers, you can see that 26.1% of women are actually employed in this industry, and 73.81% are not employed, which is a big concern as far as, putting together policies or strategies that can empower women. So in terms of, women participation in the labor force in South Africa, I just had to subdivide them into 4 categories. The leadership representation, where women occupy approximately only 24% of board seats, meaning to say men are occupying 76%. And this is coming from Business Women Association of South Africa. It is a study that was conducted, and these are the statistics that they found. Then gender pay gap in South Africa is estimated at around 28%, with women earning significantly less than men. Then women in STEM represent about 20 to 25% of the workforce in STEM field in South Africa, and this is coming from Department of Science and Innovation. Then cultural and societal norms, female labor force participation is around 46%. And this is coming from World Bank study, a study that was conducted by World Bank. And women make up approximately 60 to 80% of the informal caregiving across different contexts, which again, it is a need for concern. In terms of the challenges that women are facing, women have higher, enrollment rates in tertiary education than men. That's okay, but cultural norms still limit their access, to certain industries, be it in the mining sector, agriculture sector, or finances, in terms of them occupying, senior positions or senior roles and so forth. No wonder why you see around the world, the richest person is a male. And if you try to check, when women start featuring is around number 15 or 16 or 17, and you tend to ask yourself, why is it so? It is the access to, critical resources, access to critical information, access to, the doors, prosperity, in different societies or different, economies and so forth. And another contributor is gender-based violence. With over 50% of women have experienced some form of, GBV during their lifetime, with rural women being at higher risk. And this again has limited them probably to present themselves, when be it opportunity shows up and so forth. Why? Because they are afraid, of actually working in a male-dominated environment, or actually taking up, positions in which they had to lead other men. And this has also contributed to, the number of women, having access to critical economic, doors that may even open them up to become, the richest female in the whole world. Another one is childcare and economic impact. How high costs of childcare and lack of affordable options restrict women in different workforce participation. And estimates suggest that childcare expenses can take up to 20 to 30% of women's income. And this is coming from a study that was conducted by South Africa Institute of, Race Relations. And you can simply see that the majority of women are taking care of, be it a family member or children, and the expense for taking care of that child is actually covered by women, while men have, free money to do whatever that they would actually do on a daily norm and so forth. So these are some of the imbalances that we are really experiencing in our societies. And for sure, we really need to come up with, different strategies that can mitigate these challenges. Again, gender-based violence, about 21% of women have experienced physical violence by either their partner or someone they actually live with, be it an uncle or at workplace, be it probably their superior and so forth. The police crime rates, or rather the crime statistics for 2021 to 2020 to 2021 indicates, over 120,000 cases of domestic violence, and the number has increased from 2021 to 2025. And you tend to ask yourself, are there any policies, or are they, yes, there might be policies, but are they being, implemented or enforced, so that we can have these numbers down? So these are some of the strategies that I will talk about or recommend as I, continue with my presentation. In terms of femicide, the World Health Organization conducted a study, and they found out that, femicide rate in South Africa is 5 times higher than the global average. And it's really, really a need for concern. And again, in 2019, the subcrime, statistics reported that approximately, 2,695 cases of murder involved female victims. So each and every, case, there was a female involved. Then moving on to the maternal mortality ratio in South Africa was estimated to be 119 deaths per 100,000 live births. That is in 2017, and the number has gone up. There's another study that was conducted in 2023, and you can see that the death maternal, mortality rate has increased in South Africa and globally. So it is very, very important to really, look into these numbers and look into the strategies that are being implemented to protect women or to protect any harm that might, before women, and come up with, applicable or strategies or policies that can be enforced to protect women. So in terms of gender wage gap and financial exclusion, the gender pay gap in South Africa reveals that women earn approximately 28% less than men for the same work across various sectors, 28% less than men. And this disparity is compounded by limited access to financial services, with only about 45% of women having access to formal financial institutions, compared to 55% of men. And this shows that restricting, and this will actually restrict their economic independence and economic contribution in terms of, developing different households and, society. And furthermore, less than 30% of women have access to affordable credit and financial literacy programs that often not effectively target women, particularly those, in rural areas. And again, gender bias in the workplace are also prevalent, as studies indicate that, women face discrimination in hiring on promotions, be it in the private sector or in the public sector. Specifically, women are 25% less likely to be promoted to senior role compared to their male counterparts. And these challenges highlighted the urgent need again for policies. I'm continually saying policies because I have reviewed some of the policies, and while they are, trying to come up with strategies and so forth, are they being implemented in different societies and so forth? If not, then we as researchers, we have a role to play, be it another study or come up with, strategies on how we can, enforce, be it households, businesses in the private sector or in the, public sector, to abide by the rule or to do their things by the book, so that we can empower women. So as I continue, the most critical one is the unpaid care. And in South Africa alone, women spend an estimate of 4.3 times more hours. That is South Africa. Globally, it's 3.5, like I've indicated, but in South Africa, it's 4.3 times more hours on unpaid care work than women, including child and elderly care and household chores. And the impact thereof, this unpaid care work significantly limits, women's ability to engage in paid employment. Why? Because they have to take care of their loved one, and for sure, they do not have time again to, participate in economic activities that may bring income for their own development. And many women are unable to work full-time or pursue entrepreneurship due to, caregiving responsibilities. And this is coming from a study conducted by ILO SA in 2024. So recognition in economic accounts and paid care work is not systematically captured in South Africa's national economic accounts. So the numbers that I've actually pointed out, they're underestimated, because if you go to rural areas, there are so many, women that are involved in unpaid care work, and that has not been captured so that we can have, a true reflection of what's really happening at national level or globally. And this is, result in underestimating women's contribution to the economy, be it, also development, community development, and, national development at large. Then public service services for caregiving. Again, limited availability for public childcare and childcare services means women often should, or rather often shoulder the full burden of caregiving, reducing their workforce participation and economic independence. Like I've indicated before, yes, while it's probably there are policies that have been implemented to empower women, their availability again is limited due to, be it unpaid care work or public childcare and elderly care services, which is mainly left to women and so forth. Right. So in terms of structuring solutions, I had actually subdivided the points or strategies that we can use that can be used as strategic framework or rather designed to promote socio-economic solutions, for gender equality. At the core, we have, 3 areas that are interconnected and essential for driving change in different societies and so forth. First, we need to implement gender responsive economic policies. Gender responsive economic policies, yes, while there are policies that have been implemented, are they gender responsive? That's another question to answer, These policies are crucial because they create an inclusive environment, that recognizes and addresses the unique barriers women face in different societies. Like I've indicated when I was actually, starting the present, that I grew up in different, parts of life. The seriously, affected or the vulnerable group in different farm, I actually experienced that, and you can see that, okay, fine. Despite women having access, be it to go into a field and plow, men had a greater, access to, produce and earn income for themselves as compared to women. So coming up with gender responsive economic policy that would not only look into the public and the private, but rural areas as well is key to address, gender inequality and so forth. Second, improving access to capital is also vital. Women need better opportunities, to access financial resources if they are to participate fully, in the economy. And third, we must foster entrepreneurship and provide women with the necessary access to, capital and support to start and grow their business, especially in rural areas. And together, these 3 areas form, a comprehensive approach focused on policy, 1, 2, access, and 3, empowerment that can help us build a more equitable society where women can fully recognize their, economic potential. Because of time, I'll be quick because I still have, I think, 8 slides to go. So now focusing on, how we can promote equality through socio-economic policies. On the left side, we see the challenges. That says approximately 60% of economic policies in South Africa do not explicitly incorporate gender consideration. So this leads to what I call, gaps in addressing the specific needs of women, which hampers progress towards, true gender equality. So the proposed solution here is to prioritize the integration of, gender into economic policies, making sure that gender is a fundamental part of policy design and implementation. And on the right side, the challenge is that only about 35% of government departments are consistently including gender analysis in their planning and burdening processes. So this limited mainstreaming is a barrier to achieving comprehensive gender equality that is in the public sector. So the suggested approach is to overcome, or rather to overcome, this is to enhance gender mainstream efforts across all departments. At the center of the slide is a weighing scale symbolizing the need to balance, the measurement, highlighting that fair gender responsive policies are key to creating an equitable social, economic environment for all. Moving ahead, equality responsive economic policy. So focusing on, enhancing economic policies to promote gender equality. On the left side, it highlights that the need to improve data, disaggregation. Like I've indicated before, that we deal with estimates in economics, but we need to improve the numbers that are being projected at national level. Why? Because there's a lot that is even happening, be it in the rural areas or, or in the townships and so forth. We need to ensure that we improve the data that we have so that when we implement certain policies, they're well informed and they are going to address the need as far as gender inequality is concerned. So the key challenge here is that without better data, specifically gender, disaggregated data, it is difficult to develop targeted and evidence-based policies interventions. So the proposed solution is to invest in strengthening national data collection systems that ensure reliable data across all sectors. Then on the right side of the slide points out that we need to strengthen policy impact evaluation. So data and policy impact. So the challenge that we are currently facing is that many policies lack proper monitoring frameworks that track progress, on gender initiatives and so forth. So to address this, we should develop a robust framework, or other frameworks for monitoring and evaluation to identify areas of improvement, which is very key, and ensure accountability. And at the bottom, we see the importance of, boosting funding, specifically prioritizing support for women-owned businesses and improving market access. I would say especially for rural women and entrepreneurs. In essence, these strategies, which are to improve data, evaluating policy impact, and increasing financial support, are vital steps towards creating a more effective and gender responsive economic policies. Then moving ahead, equality responsive economic policies. As you can see that this slide outlines, key actions or key strategies to promote gender equality and addressing, economic disparities. First, we need to enforce equal pay legislation due to what I've actually presented on before, that 28% less income is going to female as compared to male. And for sure, this would actually ensure compliance with laws designed to, eliminate the gender pay gap and promotes fair compensation for women. Next, we need to investing in affordable childcare, which is very, very crucial. By expanding both public and private childcare options, we enable women to participate more fully, in the workplace or workforce, balancing work and family responsibilities. Third, promoting gender responsive budgeting is very, very essential. And this means that we are likely to ensure that resources are allocated equitably across sectors and addressing specific gender disparities and fostering fairness in different, organizations or institutions. Additionally, expanding financial inclusion is very key by increasing women's access to credit and provide targeted financial literacy programs, specifically in rural areas. We endeavor to empower women to participate more actively in the economy. And finally, combating, gender based violence requires strengthening laws and support services that I can say that would actually protect women and ensure they live freely from violence and abuse. So these combined actions form a comprehensive, approach to advancing gender equality and creating a more inclusive society. I'm approaching the end of my presentation. Then when it comes to caregiving policy oriented, so we need to focus on integrating caregiving into national dialogue on economic and social development, So it is very, very essential to recognize unpaid caregiving, such as child rearing, elderly care, and household tasks as vital contribution to the economy. Why for a man to actually go to work, probably it is a wife's responsibility to iron the clothes, to clean the house and to prepare food, and he has to go to work. And what is really happening to that woman, yes, is she's taking care of her household, probably her ability to contribute to the economy, really disadvantaged. So by valuing, caregiving, we can broaden the understanding of economic productivity and social well-being of women. And we also need to actively, incorporate caregiving topics into policy discussions and broader economic planning that would ensure that caregiving is seen as a key component of development strategies. And we also need to develop policies that promote shared caregiving responsibilities between men and women, which is crucial. And yes, we can see that for sure some organizations that are responding as far as, when a woman give birth, a man is given, ample time to actually go assist, which is probably one step forward in terms of, balancing the scale. And we also need to, initiate public awareness campaigns that value and support caregiving work, raising societal recognition of its importance and fostering, a culture of shared responsibility. And together, these steps will help us to create an environment, where caregiving is valued as an integral part of our society, right? Then lastly, recognizing women in marginalized areas. Let's ensure that the data that we gather is actually used to, inform policies or analyze, and the results are used to inform policies. Let's promote inclusive policies that address barriers faced by women in remote areas. Invest in community-based programs that strengthen local women, economic roles, and support initiatives that provide education, training, and access to market. Then processes for equality-based policies. It is important to highlight that, importance of engaging community leaders in advancing gender equality is important. First, we should leverage the influence of community leaders to challenge cultural norms that restrict women in participating in economic, social initiatives. So their authority and respect within communities can be powerful tools for driving change. And we need to also use their influence to promote, gender equality and actively support women economic empowerment, and encouraging communities to see women as a vital contributor in different, facets of our life. And probably finally, promoting community-driven projects that include women's voice, thereby ensuring that initiatives that are, relevant, accepted, and sustainable in different communities. So when community leaders are really engaged and mobilized, they can, be an instrumental in transforming attitudes and fostering, environments where women can, thrive. Then we need to involve civil societies and non-governmental organizations partnerships and implementation of awareness campaigns, providing training and mentorship, as well as advocating for, policy change is also key. Then strategies for women empowerment, which is probably my last slide. I just want to emphasize that some key takeaways from these presentations are, women's economic, participation is not just a matter of fairness. No, it is essential for achieving sustainable development and economic growth, because women are really capable of contributing, to the development of an economy, a household, and so forth. So we have got different programs, or National Development Plan 2030, Agenda 2063, Sustainable Development Goals, and so forth. So for us to be able to achieve those, we need to recognize the vital role that is played by women. And it's very, very important for us to start, walking down that lane, because we have sidelined women for a long time, yet they are the force behind any development that one might want to think of globally and so forth. So gender responsive economic policies have the power to unlock, a country's full, economic potential by harnessing the talents and contribution that are coming from women. And only through collective effort, I can boldly say we can build a fair, a more prosperous, and a future for everyone. With this, ngiyabonga. Thank you, Kialebocha, Ndolibuwa, Danki, Kialebocha, Dikensa, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mike. This was a very informative presentation. And we always say that numbers don't lie, which is true. The numbers don't lie. You gave us the stats, you gave us the statistics. But what is painful is that the numbers at the same time can be depressing, because we have been 69 years since the women of 1956 marched for us to get equal rights, and there has been beautiful policies that have been developed. We are still here, we're still talking 49% of women being active in the market. This is the South African picture. We're still talking 39% of women globally being active in the labor force. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't still be like that. Yesterday, we touched on a number of issues. We looked at issues of socialization and the expectation that men would be the providers and women, linking to what you're saying now, that women are the caregivers. How do we, but I'm asking these questions as a reflection, and maybe we can look at them at the end when we start talking about taking questions and answers. How do we leverage on what is the word, compensated for it in such a way that they are also having a sense of contribution towards the development of the South African economy? We have a lot of women depending on grants, which in themselves could also be contributing to why women are not entering the job market as easily or as eagerly as the male counterparts. How do we ensure that even though they are receiving that grant, but they can turn it around and look at the issue you mentioned of entrepreneurship? We have programs, funding programs, a lot of them, which would even be clear that we are looking for women, young women, African women, women with disabilities, all those categories, because now we're talking about targeted interventions. The funding is there. On paper, it is said that you need, if you're a woman fitting in any of those categories, you're able to access the funding. But women will tell you that when you go and apply for that funding, it's like you need to dip yourself in the blood of the lamb for you to even qualify to get that funding. So how do they then compete or participate equitably in a male-dominated entrepreneurial space? I have a lot of input, Doc, but let me not hog the stage and rather move to our next presenter. And for you, Doc, and maybe even for our next presenter, those are some of the issues that would be interesting to unpack. And to the participants, a reminder, you have the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please do write your questions to the presenters there. It doesn't only have to be questions, it can also be comments, your observations, and then we will take them after our next speaker has finished with the presentation. Our next speaker is Ms. Mahadi Buthelezi, who is the chairperson of the property pillar of the Women Economic Assembly. I know Mahadi from my previous stint before I came back to the National School of Government. She is a vibrant and very passionate woman. She works as the chairperson of the WECONA. WECONA is that Women Empowerment Women Economic Empowerment Assembly, and she is brilliant in what she does. But that's not all that Mahadi is known for. She is an award-winning business executive. She's a real estate strategist, an advocate for inclusive growth in Africa. Professionally, she is highly accomplished in the property sector as an executive, strategist, and socio-economic advocate with over 25 years of leadership experience in real estate development, corporate finance, marketing, communications, and women's empowerment. She is the group CEO of RB Property Group and the CEO of the Catholic Business Forum, where she leads national and continental efforts to drive investment in infrastructure, transform the property sector and its subsectors, and elevate women's participation in the economy. Her leadership spans high-impact public-private partnerships, you heard that word, mega, real estate portfolios, policy advocacy, humanitarian initiatives, the list goes on. And her bio is just as colorful, and because of time, I have to now limit it to just mentioning some of the awards and recognition she has received. In 2024, she was awarded the Women in Property and Infrastructure Award for Africa. 2025, Business Woman of the Year from the Global 100. Still in 2025, Global Women in Leadership Forum, she received a Strategist Award. And she is the Vice President of the International Women's Federation of Commerce and Industry. She also features in the top 100 global CEOs and the International Elite 100, where she also received a Social Activities Businesswoman of the Year award. Mahadi's bio doesn't end there. And she's one of those people, when you're in her company, you feel like being a fangirl because she has achieved so much. Over to you, Mahadi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mai. Yes, you did not have to go through all of that, but thank you so much. And I really appreciate the platform. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for having me. And yes, if I may, just request that my presentation be flighted. Thank you so much. So colleagues, just really from my end, I wish to greet you, the distinguished guests, colleagues who've joined this platform. I stand before you not only as the group CEO of, a property development company or as the co-lead of the WECONA property sector and co-chair of the National Strategic Plan on GBVF on economic power, but also as a woman who has seen firsthand both the barriers and the breakthroughs in the pursuit of women's economic empowerment in our country. We've listened to Doctor's presentation, comprehensive, detailed presentation, which I'm hoping we can actually also just, be able to discuss at a later stage. So our theme today, colleagues, speaks to the heart of our nation's transformation agenda. Gender and economic development, because make no mistake, gender equality is not a side issue, not a nice to have. It is central to economic growth, competitiveness, and inclusive development. As McKinsey Global Institute reminds us, if women participated in the economy equally to men, the global GDP could increase by 28 trillion US dollars by this year. That's not a women's issue, that's an economic imperative. May we please go to the next slide? So colleagues, I'll be presenting then to you this morning on the key focus areas, looking at women's participation in labor force, gender wage gap and financial inclusion, unpaid care work, gender responsive economic policies, and entrepreneurship and access to capital. Next slide, please. So I'll start with the women's participation, colleagues, in the labor force. So women make up more than half of our country's population. That's a fact. We know that, it's a given. Yet our labor force participation remains persistently lower than men's. When women do enter the labor market, too often they are clustered in low-paying sectors, Doctor just touched on this. Care, domestic work, and education. Sectors often undervalued, even though they are the backbone of our society. In higher paying male-dominated industry, like the one that I'm in, the property sector, mining, ICT, women remain a minority, facing glass ceilings and unfortunate structural barriers. This is not because women lack talent, colleagues, or ambition. It's because systemic barriers keep them out. The data, as you've listened to Doc, is clear. When workplaces adopt equitable recruitment, mentorship, and retention strategies, women thrive. And so do companies and the economy, in actual fact. We must therefore ask, how do we then redesign the labor markets to be more inclusive? Let's perhaps focus more on the solutions, because we already know the challenges. How do we then open doors in high growth sectors like the property sector and 9.3 trillion rand sector? And how do we ensure that women are not only participating, but also leading? Next slide, please. Now, looking at the gender wage gap and financial inclusion, on average, South African women earn about 30% less than men for the same or similar work. And this gender wage gap, colleagues, is more pronounced for Black women, unfortunately, and for women in rural areas. The result in generational inequality also means that lower earnings mean less savings, fewer assets, and less wealth transfer for the next generation. Hence, we remain in poverty year in, year out, generation to generation. But wage inequality is also not the only part of this picture. Financial inclusion is another frontier. Access to credit and capital remains one of the most persistent challenges for women. Women-owned enterprises are more likely to be rejected. I, for one, am one of those. I've been there. I know, I understand what the pain of that is. Rejected for loans, offered smaller amounts, or charged higher interest rates because there are risks. Many financial institutions still require collateral in the form of property or land titles, yet women are less likely to own such assets, especially in the rural areas, due to historical patterns of ownership. So, colleagues, the government has set a 40% set-aside target for public procurement to go to women-owned businesses. But we all know the reality on the ground lags far behind the policy. The solution: we need stronger enforcement of equal pay policies. We need gender lens investing, financial products designed to serve women. And we need to also involve women in all these policies and product design so that the institutions or even government entities have a better understanding. So it's almost like that nothing about us without us. And we need to demand accountability from the banks and DFIs in terms of, how many women-led businesses are actually accessing capital and at what scale. Next slide, please. So, colleagues, moving on to unpaid care work and its economic implications. Let's turn to something that is often invisible in economic debates: unpaid care. Again, Doc touched on this. Across the world, not only in our country, women spend 2 to 3 times more than men on unpaid care. Raising children, caring for the elderly, managing households. So if we were to put a monetary value on this work, it would account for between 10 to 15% of our GDP. That is how much women are contributing silently, without recognition, without pay, without pension contributions. But there is a cost to all of this. Unpaid care limits women's ability, as again, Doc had actually made mention in his presentation, to participate fully in the economy. It basically holds women back from pursuing careers, advancing in leadership, or even starting businesses. So what does a gender-sensitive economy then look like? It looks like subsidized childcare. It looks like parental leave for both mothers and fathers. It looks like recognizing care work in our national accounts so that policymakers can no longer pretend it does not exist. Because until we recognize, colleagues, reduce and redistribute care work, we will continue to limit the economic potential of women and, by extension, our entire economy. Moving on to gender-responsive economic policies. South Africa has progressive policies. I'm sure we all agree on this on paper. We speak of inclusive procurement, gender-responsive budgeting, and economic empowerment frameworks. Yet, too often, the gap between policy and practice is one that remains wide. So what does gender-responsive economic policy mean, colleagues, in practice? It means designing every policy, whether be it on trade, industrialization, infrastructure, property, or housing, with a gender lens. It means asking, how will this affect women and men differently? Right now, I'm involved in a project in the CBD revitalization. You realize that even the designs of those buildings, of the streets, the configurations thereof, it was designed without having consideration of women, persons with disabilities, or even military veterans, or even children for that matter. It was designed for work, for business. The buildings are not that user-friendly. And now, because safety is also an issue, issues of gender-based violence and femicide were not even considered. So, colleagues, who will benefit and who might be left behind? Globally, there are strong examples. If we look at Rwanda, requiring gender budget statements for every ministry. Canada applies a gender-based analysis plus to all federal policies. So here at home, colleagues, we must strengthen implementation and also M&E. We must also move from commitments to now measurable outcomes. Our policies, colleagues, that are gender blind are not neutral. They are actually harmful. Only gender responsive policies can close that gap. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, colleagues, moving on to our entrepreneurship and access to capital. The pathway to empowerment for many women, this really can open up a lot of opportunities. Women entrepreneurs in our country are resilient. We know this. Also Angela touched on the fact that it's 69 years, 59 years, I think it is, since the women marched. Women in South Africa are creative and women in South Africa are determined, but too often they remain underfunded and undersupported. Collateral-based lending excludes many women. Venture capital remains dominated by men who invest in people who look like them. Women entrepreneurs lack access not only to capital, but also to networks, to mentorship, and to markets, access to market. Yet the potential is massive, colleagues. Women-owned entities are more likely to reinvest in their families and in their communities. Yet they are more likely to also hire other women. So empowering one woman entrepreneur has a multiplier effect across the society. And this is why we have launched, as an example, initiatives such as the Women in Property Fund, which was recently launched, and the Women in Property Consortium. These are not just vehicles for funding, they are platforms for collective ownership, training, and participation in large-scale projects. So the way forward, colleagues, for us, I believe is clear. We must scale blended finance models to de-risk women-led businesses. We must ensure procurement set-asides are real and enforced. And we must create ecosystems of support, training, incubation, mentorship, and access to networks. So, colleagues, in conclusion, gender and economic development are not separate issues. They are two sides of the same coin. When women are excluded, our economies underperform. When women are empowered, societies prosper. So today, I would like to leave you with 3 calls to action, not one. The first one, commit to equal pay and financial inclusion. Make it a non-negotiable. The second one, recognize and redistribute unpaid care work. It is not a woman's burden, it is a societal responsibility. The third one, invest in women entrepreneurs. They are not a risk. They are the greatest untapped opportunity of our time. As we look to the future, colleagues, let us remember, when women rise, economies rise. When women thrive, nations thrive. And when women are given the space, the capital, and the recognition they deserve, we all move closer to the South Africa we dream of. Prosperous, inclusive, and just. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mahadi. Thank you for that presentation. Short to the point, but with solutions at the end. I was looking at that slide where you said, you quoted, I think it's McKinsey, where it says that if women were economically fully involved, if women were fully involved in the economy, it has the potential of increasing the GDP by 28, was it trillion or billion? Trillion. And these are some of the benefits that we have to look at. You know, when you look at what today and yesterday's presentations represent. Yesterday, it focused a lot on the barriers to why women are not progressing, either in their careers or economically. It was issues of GBV and how it impacts their health. It was how access to healthcare impacts women and men's participation in the economy or in life generally. Then we moved to today. Today we were looking mostly at solutions. Dr. Mike started with giving us the statistics to say this is where we are. And we all agree, looking at those statistics, that that is not where we want to remain as women. And Mahadi comes in and extends that presentation and says, if we want to move away from those statistics that Dr. Mike was talking about, these are the proposed actions that we need to take. I want to pause there. If you leave me on the stage, I can go on and see if we have questions. We don't have any questions there. We don't have anything in the chat box. So it's okay. After Dr. Mike's presentation, I asked some questions for reflection and asked Dr. Mike and also to Mahadi to say, with those questions, can you try to elaborate or maybe go deeper into Dr. Mike, for you specifically? You said we need to have targeted interventions. How targeted must these targeted interventions be? Because we have been having these targeted interventions. We have the employment equity stakes. Mahadi just mentioned the 40% procurement target, and she also mentioned the step-asides, but the implementation seems to be lagging. Dr. Mike, what would you propose as a solution or a way forward?
Well, thank you very much for that question. The solution or the way forward is, whilst we have been implementing, what you call it, top-bottom approach policy formulation strategy, it is high time for us to revise that approach. Let's start by going into different communities. Let's sit with the masses. Let's understand the issues. What is it that is really affecting? Because if we implement a policy at the national level and try to actually, or rather pass a policy at the national level and try to implement it, in different communities without really understanding the issues that these communities are facing, we are likely to, go down the same road again. So I'm saying these targeted interventions are supposed to start from communities. Let's talk to women in different communities. Let's talk to youth in different communities. Let's talk to elderly women in different communities. You'll be surprised that the rich information may come out, from various communities that can be used to, address the challenges that we're facing. For example, caregiving. Yes, we are told at national level that, okay, fine, probably the statistics have reduced and so forth, but that's not the case. Go to different communities, different houses and so forth. You can find out that a woman is unable to go to work. Why? Because whatever that we were taught growing up, that a woman is responsible for taking care of someone it's still happening. So that is actually pushing women to really contribute in different economies and so forth. Right. 1, 2, let's try by all means now, we have policies. Let's put together strategies on how to assess the effectiveness of the policies that we've implemented or monitoring measures. Be it 5 years, after 5 years of implementing a certain policy, let's go back in different communities and check if livelihoods women have improved and so forth. So those are some of the targeted interventions that I would actually, talk about. And I have many, but for now, let me stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Mike, for that. It is indeed important for us when we look at these issues to not only limit ourselves to looking at the global picture, but honing in to the specific communities. And what you're saying now or proposing as a solution resonates with what was said yesterday when they said, when we look at issues of GBV, for example, or HIV, whatever social ill that we are dealing with, we shouldn't solely rely on the global picture. We should zoom into where the real problems are, where the clusters are, and try to understand where the issues are in that particular community or environment. I'm glad that what you're saying is resonating. I love it when things are merging and connecting because they make sense. Mahadi, for you, you mentioned the issue of access to finance, that it is important that we de-risk women and make sure that women are able to access finance that is going to position them in such a way that they're able to participate actively in the economy. You also mentioned that you experienced it yourself, that the gatekeeping when it comes to women getting access to finance. How would you then advise other women? I know women, there are stories of women who have started cooperatives and using the power of many to get access to finance. Are there other strategies that are practical that you would like to share that women are able to employ to be able to access funding?
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, indeed. I am one of the many Black women who have been through the application processes and applications declined in terms of funding or finance. I remember when I started the business, in 2000, I was first told that I have not built up my experience. So first they'd like to see, these are now the financial institutions, me having built up the experience that they need and have the necessary collateral, et cetera, that's needed. Then when I had that, I went back. Again, I was declined. So, look, it's important for us to, in response to your question, to in this stature right now, especially looking at DOC's research, we need to collaborate and with financial institutions, with DFIs, so that we are in a position of strengthening and scaling blended financial instruments. Right. So in terms of doing that, we've found that traditional lending models fail and have failed and continue to fail many women-led business entities, as I've shared, due to lack of collateral or credit history. So let's look at innovative ways, government-backed guarantee schemes, blended finances I've made mention, even expanding models like what we've just announced now recently, the Women in Property Fund. This is now for the property sector. and introduced first loss capital as an example. And also let's also look into institutionalizing gender lens investing so that capital should be aligned with impact goals that include gender equity. So how we could probably do that, again, collaboration from my end, require DFIs and commercial banks to track and report lending to women-owned businesses, to develop gender-focused investment portfolios, and also to engage asset managers to apply a gender lens scorecard, and then go as far as encouraging ESG funds to incorporate the G for gender. And yes, we can also look at mandating inclusive public procurement, where we can make that request that government procurement is a R1 trillion opportunity if it reaches women. Enforce the 40% set aside across all sectors and entities for women-owned businesses in public procurement. Publish real-time dashboards, as an example, and also penalize non-compliance and reward departments or entities who meet targets, support women entrepreneurs to pre-qualify for tenders, as an example. And we could go as far as building, Angela, ecosystems of support, and not just funding. Capital alone is not enough. Access to networks, mentorship, and market is also crucial. I'm sure you found that there are ladies who were lucky enough to be granted the finance or the funding, and you find yet that they still fail. It happens. So incubators and accelerators tailored for women can assist greatly, so especially in high growth and male dominated sectors such as the one that I'm in, the property sector. National mentorship platforms linking seasoned business women with emerging entrepreneurs from grassroots level, those who are in the rural areas, in the township, peri-urban areas, and urban still, right? And also look at developing joint venture frameworks and special purpose vehicles, and go as far as triple Ps, and then expand access to market linkages. So we can further look into technology, how to best leverage technology to close the gaps. Digital solutions, as I was sharing in another presentation, where a lady said she was able to grow her entity throughout 130 countries during the COVID-19 pandemic, simply because she managed to connect virtually with everyone. So digital solutions can democratize access actually to financial and business services. How? By developing a digital financial services platform, promoting digital identity, and also expanding digital marketplaces. And then we could look at embedding financial literacy and the legal empowerment. Again, lack of financial skills and awareness of rights can be a barrier to capital access. So how could we maybe even do that? Let's look into incorporating financial literacy modules. Let's look into partnering with legal clinics to support women. Let's look into creating creating content in local languages. I've actually experienced that we communicate in English, but not everyone understands the language. So in order for us to be more inclusive, more embracing, more welcoming, we need to really, really strongly consider communicating when we are creating awareness campaigns in other languages. Then, of course, policy levers and governance for accountability. So the list goes on. The list goes on.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mahadi. Perhaps for everyone, I need to share this. I don't know if you're able to see it. We launched this Chandler Good Government Index on Monday as the National School of Government and the Chandler Institute of Governance. And the index looks at how governments perform across different pillars in different countries. And for South Africa, it found that one of our high scores were in the policy space. To say that we have laws and policies that are up there, they are brilliant. You know that our constitution is one of our best, but we are faring very low when it comes to other areas, particularly helping others rise. Now, I'm connecting this to the conversation that we're having now, looking specifically at women to say, if we have these beautiful policies, why are we not able to help women rise? If they rise economically, perhaps, and we know it would, not even perhaps, it would significantly reduce their dependence on men who are abusing them. You know, it's a rolling, what do you call it? The ball of snow, a snowball. It's a rolling snowball, because the more it rolls, then the bigger it gets. Then it represents this empowerment that we're looking to give women, because they would be supported by policies. Dr. Mike, you said it clearly to say, it's all good and well to have all those policies, but if we are not monitoring their implementation, if we are not keeping track, we won't get far. Mahadi went further to say we need to get to a point where we penalize non-compliance or non-meeting of targets and rewarding those that are showing real effort when it comes to meeting targets. I want to hand over to our two speakers. In terms of engagements and questions, I'm not seeing anything else, but I want to hand over to you to wrap up, you know, your final shots when it comes to this topic of gender and economic empowerment. What is it that you want us to leave here with? If we fail at everything else, what is this one thing that you want us to at least remember? Let's start with you, Dr. Mike.
No, thank you very much for a wonderful opportunity to present on issues that are really affecting the nation. So I would actually say, yes, we have strategies in place. We have implemented those strategies, but let's take a step back and relook into those strategies. Why am I saying this? The National Development Plan, whatever strategies that we have implemented in that plan, yes, they might be looking into what's really happening into the economy. But if you actually zoom in, you can see that it's actually being driven from, or whatever, it's actually coming from the international, strategies that probably being produced by, be it World Bank and so forth. For example, Agenda 2063. Let's take a step back and look into those strategies and see if they are really addressing the issues that are facing our people in South Africa. We have gotten independence long time ago, but poverty is still an issue. Unemployment is still an issue. Yet we have what strategies? So let's take a step back and strategize and see how best we can move forward as a nation. You spoke about grants. Yes, while grants, it's a very good strategy in order to empower those that do not have income. There are pros and cons, right? Let's start with the pros. Yes, people are able to buy whatever that they can buy that would actually provide food on the table. But what are the cons? We are building this stereotypical type of thinking For example, a child grant, where one would say, I know I can easily get a child, the government is going to take care of this child. How best now can we, remove that type of thinking in order for the grant to address the issues that it's supposed to address? So let's take a step back and strategize and look into the future and come up with, strategies that are holistic and forward-looking. That's what I would want to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mike. You know, the issue of grants is a very thorny issue, and you're right, it has its pros and it has its cons. For me, it's especially the 350 rands one. If you do the maths of what the government is paying in a month, one wonders if we are not able to build industries that will generate income for the recipients. So let me stop there with the issue of the grants. We will have another session where we focus on the grants. Thank you, Dr. Mike. Mahadi, your parting shots?
Thank you so much. This has really been insightful. It's really been exciting, and also listening to yourselves, Angela, and also to Doc's presentation. And really from my end, I've got just a few, right? So access to finance is not just access to money, it's access to power, especially because I represent the NSP on gender-based violence and femicide pillar number 5 on economic power. It's access to opportunity, it is access to dignity. Let's also stop treating it like it's a favor, and start treating it like it is a right. Then when we invest in women, we don't just fund businesses, we fund movements, we fund and fuel economies, and we build nations. If we can just really get that understanding. A gender equal economy is not a distant dream. But it is an intentional decision that we all need to make. It needs to be a bold one, and that decision begins with intentional action, right? If you are intentional, and it must begin today, not later. Let us no longer ask women to rise alone. Let us build ladders, not when one is up there, kicks the ladder back. Let us build ladders. Let us open the doors. Let us rewrite systems that were never designed for women in the first place. And policy without practice is performance. Empowerment without access is empty. Let our commitments be loud, but let our implementation be louder. Women don't need handouts. They need capital, they need contracts, and they need connections. If we get that right, and you will see the reduction of gender-based violence, the rest will then follow. Every barrier we break for a woman today becomes a bridge for generations to come. And lastly, if finance is the bloodline of the economy, then women must be its beating heart, not its afterthought. That is that from my end.
Thank you very much, Mahadi. I'm taking today, policy without action is performance. It's just for vibes. Colleagues and our lovely participants, they say, Moja morago ke kgoši, one who eats last. I don't know how to directly translate it in English, but you are king I will try to say it in Zulu. I know it, it's a song. Isinamuva, liyabukwa. And us being the last in the activities that mark this 2025 Women's Month, we ended it with a bang, because we ended it with solutions, with hope for women looking forward. I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Mahadi, and also for answering the call when I said, please, here is an opportunity, please come and speak, and you did not hesitate. Thank you so much for making time available for us. Dr. Muzekenyi, thank you so much, sir, for your wisdom. You made me start thinking numbers. You made me start calculating grants. I would love to have an opportunity to engage further with you, both of you, including the speakers that we had yesterday. And to all of you who are attending this engagement, thank you so much for having taken the time to be here with us, to be here with the NSG, listening to Dr. Mike, listening to Mahadi. Thank you to the organizers. It has been a good ending to this Women's Month. Thank you, colleagues. I want to end there and wish all of you a fantastic weekend. Thank you.